Welcome. Getting ready for this. I got to get Instagram going, let people log in here. I'm going to close some windows that need to be closed. Hope everyone's doing super well on this day, Tuesday, February 15th. Welcome to our weekly Q&A session. I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you and hearing your questions and seeing if we can get those questions answered today. Let's see. It's the 15th. I hope you had a nice Valentine's Day yesterday. If you got to have some time for that. If not, sorry. But let's see. Let me get going here. I'll be less distracted once I get this going live. And ready, it is live. Okay, so feel free to drop any questions that you have into the chat. I'm excited. If you've noticed over the last few weeks, I've started to share some content from an upcoming new project, and I'm going to be starting to focus on that very soon. What's up, David? What's up, Escuela Trombone? What's up, Chuck? Arnon? What's up, Taylor? He showed up just like he promised. That's true. I don't know. At some point, I'm sure I'll wear a shirt that you don't like. I can't keep it up forever. That is for sure. But I've started to share some content from my new book. My new book's called Create, Connect, Repeat, Building an Artistic Business in the 21st Century. And this is a book I've been working on. I worked on it throughout the pandemic, and it's been something that I started many years ago as a video series for the label, and a video series. What's up, Alton? Started as a video series and kind of transitioned to really my whole label and everything that we're doing. And so that's called Create, Connect, Repeat. And so I've started to share some things. The pre-orders are open on my website if you want to check those out. But we do some cool things, I hope, in April. It'll be out on April 5th. So April 5th is the next big thing for me. What's up, Christian? What's up, Josh? Next big release. But yeah, feel free to drop in any questions you've got, and we'll try to get as many of them answered as we can today. Yeah, and tonight, if you're interested, we're doing a live stream. My nonprofit, the Institute for Creative Music, is kind of rebooting, getting some things going. And so that is a organization I started actually at Eastman. And we focus on using improvisation as a tool for musicianship development for musicians of all ages. So that includes obviously jazz improvisation and many other forms of improvisation, all the way from the first day somebody picks up an instrument to learning giant steps. So that's an organization. And we've made projects out of doing some music of some kind of like popular music from today. So we did a project of Prince's music and a project of Bjork's music, and we're revisiting a project tonight of St. Vincent's music. So we're kind of going to dive into that tonight. What's up, Jay? What's up, Linda? What's up, Effie? Hope you're all having a good day. But I see a question here. So we're doing that tonight. That's at 7:15 Central. Alton's asking if my book is self-published. We have a publishing company through the Institute for Creative Music, so it's called the IFCM Press, and so all of my books have come out on IFCM Press. So not self-published, but through a publishing company that we do. And so we've also done my books. We did a few. We did this one by another trombonist named Brian Scarborough, called The Scales Handbook. Here it is. And we just released from Brian also a book of Steve Davis transcriptions. So there's a book. It's from, what's up, Fritz? There's a book of them from, which record was it? I forget. Go look up Brian Scarborough, and he's got a great new transcription book. So anyway, it's not just my stuff. We do a bunch of things. We've done some bass stuff for a bassist named Danny Zeman. He lives in Europe now, in Vienna, and he's got a great book that we published, and some other things. But oh my goodness, Bob, I'm glad you're back online. Glad you're feeling better. Yeah, I agree with you. I hope you're feeling better soon. Okay, let me scroll up so I don't miss these. From John. What's up, John? Do you recommend doing whisper tones as part of your warm-up to work on sound, or towards the end of the day to build strength, or both? I usually do whisper tones towards the beginning, or anytime that my sound is feeling fuzzy or unfocused, or I'm feeling tired, or I feel like I just need to dial things in. I go to whisper tones because it helps me to get centered, It like helps the buzz come to the middle, the air focus, the flow focus. So I do them usually towards the beginning of the day, but that doesn't mean that that's the only time to do whisper tones. You can do them whenever. I feel like they really help focus in my sound. So I did them today. I was doing them today. I was practicing on this big horn earlier for this concert later, and yeah, so I do them all the time. What's up, Russia? Thanks for being here, trombonist Daniel. Okay, so I know there's one from Taylor at least coming here. Let's see, let's get this one and we'll jump. I see some questions coming in on Instagram as well. So being an effective educator means that you're practicing what you preach based on what you've gained from previous teachers. What is one thing you would apply in my teaching that they didn't use? Something, yeah, I mean, something specific that I don't use from my teachers. This is a good question. This is a very difficult question. What is something that I don't use that I got from a previous teacher? Or, I mean, sorry, I'm trying to think. I mean, so something that I think a lot of people get caught up on is like the what of music. And it took me a while to realize that what people were talking about, like more when I was at Juilliard than at Eastman, is like more about the how, or more like what it feels like, and why it swings, and like the reasoning behind the notes, not just the notes itself. There's that kind of aspect of things. And there's kind of this aspect of like, there became this whole kind of like canon of jazz education stuff that kind of started to move away from the source material. So I've tried to move back towards the source material, if that makes sense. So learning tunes, transcriptions, not etudes, this kind of thing. Not that my teachers necessarily promoted etudes or anything in particular, but just in general, as a person that has observed educators all over the country teaching this music, sometimes like there's an overly focused like one way point of view where like I try to be inclusive. I want to have like maybe 3 ways of explaining something, or 4 ways or more ways, to like have multiple angles about like how to explain, like, well, yes, like use the diminished scale here, but like why does that work? What sound does it create? What are other options? Like, why are we even talking about this? And how it works in maybe other situations or multiple situations. So that's something, I guess, is that I try to have like more than one way to explain something, and I feel like sometimes I had to find that from different teachers. But I mean, at this point, it's very tough for me to really self-evaluate if I'm doing that, because I've explained it so many times that it feels like I'm doing it sometimes the same way, even though it might be multiple ways. Yeah. All right, let me get this question from IG here. When you improvise, are you playing things that you have practiced before, or are you actually creating something new from concepts and ideas? This is a great question. I don't know why Instagram now no longer lets me put the questions on the screen, but this is a great question from Josh. So I'm going to read it one more time because it's such a great question. When you improvise, are you playing things that you've practiced before, or are you actually creating something new from concepts and ideas? Okay, so let me tell you about the evolution of this question, how I thought about it, and what made it click for me, and how I think about it now. So when I was first starting to be an improviser, be a jazz musician, I was under the impression that everything was a magic, and that you heard everything and you played everything, and that's how all the greatest players did it. They heard it and they played it. They were instantly connected from their mind to their horn. And then the longer further down the road, heard a story from Jimmy Heath about J.J. Johnson, and that he would play the same solo over and over and over again. And I was like, that's interesting. And then other sources kind of confirmed that like JJ, you can even hear it on some alternate takes on recordings. Like he played similar things, similar times. And like the further you get in wanting to define how you can improvise, like I know that for me on my instrument, at a certain point I realized if I haven't played it before, there's not a high chance that I'm going to invent like a new way of playing my instrument in the moment on the spot. And so when I was working with Steve Teray, he said something offhandedly that really hit me hard, and it made me think about what types of things I need to be practicing in order to be able to improvise freely. So I talk about, the idea of clarity and flexibility. And when I say flexibility as a musician, I mean not only being able to execute things on your instrument, but be able to hear and play anything that occurs to you or anything that needs to happen in the moment, whether that's improvisation or reading wise. You need to be able to execute that. And that's why you need to be flexible to be able to execute anything that comes your way, right? And that could be something you're inventing or reading. So he said something like, you got to practice the transition between every two notes so that you're not at the whims, you're not relying on your instrument, like this note to this note. Like F to G is maybe one amount of easiness, but F to D flat is another. So you want to make sure that everything is equally easy. And then I realized that doesn't just apply to every two notes, but it applies to every scale or shape. And so I have kind of developed my way of practicing in that, like, I want to be able to be free to improvise. So I have to memorize and internalize a lot of different shapes. And to me, that includes two note shapes, like one note to the next, being clean, being consistent. And then the next thing is like, okay, three note shapes. So that could be scalar, or that could be triads, or it could be fourths, or it could be fifths. So I've tried to practice those different shapes. And then obviously seventh chords is 4, pentatonic scales is 5, hexatonic scales or triad pairs is 6, major scales is 7, octatonic scales, whole tone scales is 6, so all those different things are just different shapes. And so I've tried to shed it for me just so that I'm free. I want to be free. I'm not free. I can't do a lot of things. But I know that if I don't practice it ahead of time, I'm not going to instantly be able to have the technique to play something new. So that's a long answer to Josh's question, but it's both is the answer to the question. The question is, if you're just joining us, like the question was, do you play only what you hear, or do you play what you know? Well, it's both. You have to be able to play what you hear. You have to be able to practice these different shapes and different ideas. And so you can't elaborate on ideas if you don't have the foundational language. So that's how I think about it. That's how I try to teach about it. It's like a language. You got to learn the alphabet first. You got to learn words first. So that's shapes, that's triads, that's seventh chords, it's intervals, it's learning your scales from different starting pitches. It's being able to not have to think about these things. And I think that oftentimes we don't get to go deep enough, or we don't spend enough time on one topic. Maybe some of my students think I spend too long, but it's because it needs to be internalized. If you're thinking about it at all, it's not going to come out naturally, most likely. And until it's totally natural, it's not going to be able to be part of your improvisational language. And that's what makes sense to me. That's how I've learned. So I went from thinking it was totally invented to okay, I need to learn to play a lot of different things, and then I can invent how they go together, right? So I wouldn't say that I'm playing only licks that I know or only shapes that I know, but it's all stuff that I've practiced in some fashion or other. So that's a very long answer. Sorry. Yeah, it has to be both. I see some people. What's up, Peter? I'll get your question in a minute. Sorry, Taylor. I'm going to answer your questions, but I got to scroll down and come back. Okay. The last tune I wrote. I just finished my whole suite of new music last week. The titles have to do with the theme of this particular record. Peter, for ballad playing, what do you tap into for saying something meaningful, soulful, heartfelt? Is there a certain experience, performer, or tune? I don't know that there's a specific one thing that I try to quote unquote tap into. But there's a couple of different ideas that it's when I'm playing a ballad, I think more about musical events and the feeling and flow of the piece of music rather than about playing lines, playing language or whatever, You're welcome, Josh. Um, so it's not language. It's not like playing lines and stuff. It's like, what does the music need? That's the question. That's what I usually say. What does the music need right now? And so sometimes that's like, it needs energy. Does that mean it's loud? Does it mean it's busy? We've talked about it the last couple of weeks ago. There's a master class that Ido Meshulam did when he was here, talking about like this matrix of density and complexity. It was a great way of explaining it, that it's like you can build intensity by rhythmic density, note density, range, volume. There's like a whole kind of spectrum of things that you can increase to increase the density or energy of an improvisation in that case. But so I think in musical events, and I think of the vibe, and I think of how do I want this to feel, and I got to play in a way that makes it feel like that. I hate playing a ballad that feels sterile, right? So I don't want it. What's the point of playing a ballad if it doesn't have some kind of emotional content to it or feeling to it? So and half the time I just play the melody these days on a ballad. I don't even try to improvise, because it's like I want to be so focused on that part. How can I express this melody? And I don't know that there's a specific thing other than listening to great musicians who play great ballads and absorbing on different instruments. Bill Evans is great, but how do you translate that to trombone? I don't know. But there's a certain delicacy, delicate approach that I think is worth taking away. And then, Herbie plays ballads different, and then Chick Corea plays ballads different. I like pianists. And but then Michael Brecker, you hear Michael Brecker play My One and Only Love. Like, that's a totally different kind of like stronger approach over it. What's up, Javier? So I don't know. It's not one answer, I don't think. But oh, look at this. We get some spammers coming our way. Let's skip over that one. Okay, from Taylor. Do you think that the idea of music school now is more mathematical than it's authentic for its mission? I think that the reason that it's went in a way that's authentic. I think the reason music school might seem like it's mathematical is because people are trying to find ways to measure progress, and the only way to measure progress is by having something to measure, and that usually ends up being progress on scales or tunes or like checking boxes, So I think that's why it's kind of moved in that way. How do I do that without touching the screen? It's because I'm doing this on my iPad, and so you can't see my hand, but I was touching the screen. Congrats, by the way. Javier is a great trombonist and arranger. He's in the Army Blues, but he also just started teaching at Peabody. So if you're in Baltimore, Javier, he's your cat. All right, let me scroll back. There was more questions up here. Assuming the usage of notation software remains to a good purpose, do you ever feel compelled to write by hand and avoid writing in notation software for the sake of improving your writing? I think I've told this story before, but when I was at Juilliard, Andy Farber made us do a nonet chart by hand, and it gave me a new appreciation for having to do all the copy work that way, and I decided I didn't want to do the copy work that way. I always write, though, like by hand. When I'm writing tunes or I'm writing like the outline, I'm creating an outline or working on the big picture of a piece or something like that, I always do it by hand, and I prefer to use large format like score paper, which just seems to be missing. Because in the fall I was working on a new piece, and I just finished it last week, finally, and so I don't know where my paper went to show you, but so I write like that, and then on the trombone and at the piano, and then I put it all together in the notation software. But yeah, I like to write ideas by hand. I usually orchestrate and copy in the computer. Do you believe in academia that grades are subjective in Justification to how a student can understand music? It's an ongoing debate and maybe more psychological than a straight answer. Do you believe in academia that grades are subjective? Grades are always subjective, so I don't think you can really say that any grades are not subjective. It's always subjective to the person that's reading. And it's the same if you publish a piece of work, a piece of music, literary work, whatever, like it's always having to do with somebody's subjective interpretation of your ideas. So if you come to me and you want to call something and participate in a discussion about learning jazz, like that means a certain thing to me. I went through certain schools, I had certain teachers, I have a certain outlook on what is important to understand the fundamentals of playing and improvising in a jazz context because of my experience. So I don't think you can escape that it's subjective. So I try to have things be a blend of yes and no. Did you do this? Did you not do it? And then also content, the content of what you did. So, and it's also contextual to like what you've done before. So I try to create assignments that are kind of yes and no at first, so I can get to know someone's playing. Did they do this? Did they put in the time? Did they do this transcription? Yes or no? It's very obvious. Yes, you did it. No, you didn't. Right? So give credit where credit is due. And then from there can be other more nuanced, like how much have you internalized? You know, some people like to use rubrics for this and kind of have like, okay, so that like for a class I teach, there's a rubric and kind of like wherever it kind of falls in terms of how it feels. You know, does it feel internalized? Does it feel like you're still thinking really hard about it? You know, the more you listen to students play, you can kind of get a sense of where that falls. And so, yeah, I mean, there is no way for it to not be subjective. There's no perfect objective musical grading situation. All right. Yeah, here we go. Thanks. All ballads and performers and vibes are not created equal. That's totally true. All ballads, like sometimes you want to play a walking ballad, sometimes you want to play a super slow ballad. I love playing super slow ballads. I don't know if people like to listen to them, but if I'm going to play like Flowers of Love something or something, I was like boo be bubble be boo do dee, really slow. But if I want to play like I'll Be Seeing You or something, I play more of like a walking ballad. Or like Mood Indigo is like kind of like that tempo. Yeah, anyway, so there's many ballad vibes. That's a great observation. Thank you, Peter, for not correcting me, but adding that, because that's an important part of it. Okay, let's see what questions we have on Instagram. Well, I think because Instagram won't let me do the question thing anymore, people don't know we're doing a Q&A, but feel free to drop in any questions. Connor says he's got a canker sore in his mouth and got to play 2 lead trombone gigs. Any recommendations how to survive? I think they make some stuff that can like numb that at the pharmacy. Hopefully it's not on your lip and it's just in your mouth. I think that's just part of it, man. Like, part of being a brass player, part of being a musician is like learning to like play when you don't feel well. That's part of being a professional, man. You do your job even if it doesn't feel the best. You know, you just find a way to make it work. So maybe you don't take, like for example, like maybe you just don't take any solos, so you can focus on playing lead, doing your job, and getting called back. You know, there's a lot of ways there, but. Oh, Taylor's over here now. Hi, Taylor. You jumped off of YouTube. Okay. I don't think I missed any questions, but I could have, because a bunch of comments came in at once. But feel free to drop your questions in if you're just joining us. It's February 15th, Tuesday. Let's see. What is your favorite J.J. Johnson rumor story about his career? I don't know if I have a favorite rumor. I don't like just spreading rumors or anything. I think the most interesting thing about JJ's career is the fact that he quit and came back. I think that he went to LA, started writing film music, and then he quit altogether. He was like a inspector, like a blueprint inspector or something like that. Yeah, and so then he came back, and then he made that record. So if you want to hear some very clear difference in like development. It's like listen to JJ in the 50s and 60s, then listen to JJ live at the Village Vanguard from the 80s, or go and look up his playing. There's some live at Umbria videos. There's a bunch of live videos of his band, on the internet, on YouTube. And so to kind of contrast that, how his playing evolved and changed after that time off, I think is super interesting. And he's like the pinnacle of trombone, like bebop trombone playing, and then like he totally changed. And that's inspiring to me. Really inspiring to me. So, looks like there's some better canker sore advice than I had. That's good. Thanks, Fritz. Let's see. Do you see social media as a marketing tool or as an income source? If it's the latter, would you consider making your playing alongs commercial free so there aren't interruptions? So sorry, I just thought two things simultaneously. Instead of saying either one, I just said and just trailed off. But so I didn't realize that the thing is that I should have gone in on YouTube and made the play along so that they would not have those breaks in the middle. So that's just a totally just oversight on my part, So like, John, thank you for the reminder. I think somebody might have said that to me before I think it was about those. And so I just need to pay more attention. That's all. So to answer your question about that particular thing. So if you didn't know, I have some like play alongs on YouTube. And like basically YouTube just sticks those ads wherever you want, unless you go in and move them or turn them off, right? So yeah. Oh, actually, okay. So the get ready ones. Yeah. That makes sense. I never thought about it, to be honest with you, in terms of like the fact that it was actually preventing people from using them. So thank you for that. I'm going to get that on my list of things to attack. But yeah, so but to answer your question, in terms of social media, I kind of think of YouTube as it's in its own little arena. I guess it is part of social media, I suppose, in a certain way. But I feel like YouTube is separate in the way that you grow on that platform, in the way that the content is created, the way that the content is consumed is totally different than on Instagram, on TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. So I view them kind of as different. And I definitely view social media as a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool. We're here, we're hanging out, we're building relationship, we're answering questions, we're talking, and building a community of people that know on Tuesday they can come and like we can talk about trombone and whatever else and have a community of like-minded people. And then maybe at some point they'll buy a CD or stream a CD or come to a concert, and that's great. But I definitely view it as a marketing tool. And then on YouTube, obviously, like the goal with YouTube is that it could be potentially an income stream as well, right? Because there's direct advertising dollars that YouTube will share with the creators. So, but ruining your experience was not my intention. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. And I will, I guess I'll just have to be more careful about making sure that those ads are not interrupting the exercises. But I think they're also on all the streaming services. So if you want to play them straight down, but I could see that doing it on YouTube might be easier. Thank you, John. I really do appreciate that. Wait, okay, Taylor, reflecting upon transcribing drum solos and adding pitches, let's say you tried to feel how a drummer plays a 16th note or paradiddle, how do you attempt playing a rhythm on the horn that remains rhythmically true to what the player was intending? So Taylor was talking about in our improv class, one of the exercises that I always found super useful to do as in my development, was to take a drum solo, like just a drum solo, like Philly Joe or Max Roach or someone like that plays really clear rhythmic language, and then translate it onto a horn, because the rhythmic language of drums is a little bit different. And so it's always going to be an adaptation. So I think that to specifically say like a paradiddle, like I don't hear that deeply into the drum language to be able to. Sometimes I can recognize certain things that I know, but like I can't hear it all, and so I just do my best. And so when you attempt to play that, it's just the accent. So if you're talking about paradiddle, so for me, it's a little bit different as a horn player, because however I would say that rhythm out loud is how I would play it on the trombone. So translating to guitar is a little different, but like on trombone is however I would say it, is the short answer. Yeah, I know. I put the words in your mouth. You didn't say ruined. I said ruined. But yeah, it's annoying if you're trying to actually play through the exercises and there's a commercial. It's like super annoying. That is super annoying. I hadn't thought of it. I'm just being totally honest. I hadn't thought of it. That like, oh, those are getting in the way. So, man, Taylor had lots of. You weren't lying when you said you had a lot of questions for today. Taylor with the always coming through with these questions. Sorry, I just avoided this question by saying that. Okay, sorry. Do you think favoritism in music school is an ongoing problem for students and teachers? How do you see it as a way between how you were a student, how your teachers viewed you? This is, I suppose, a multifaceted question. I've always wondered how my teachers saw me. That's something I've wondered. I've meant to ask them, but it's like a weird thing to ask someone. Like, what did you think about me? And like, are they even going to tell you, really? Even if it was negative, Or positive. So, I mean, I don't know. I had a experience where a guest artist was particularly not offensive, but like intense and like very specific kind of cutting comments towards me. And a teacher that I thought viewed me very negatively had other things to say that were apologetic about that situation and that didn't align with what I thought the teacher thought of me, So favoritism, I mean, it's an ongoing problem for students and teachers. I guess it probably is. I mean, to me, any student that is working hard and you can see their progress is a great student in my book. I don't know. I don't know if it's an ongoing problem. Do you think it's an ongoing problem? I haven't. Nobody's ever said anything to me like, "Oh, you're playing favorites" or something. I try to approach every student with respect and giving them the benefit of the doubt. I think that's one of my weaknesses sometimes, is that if I maybe give people the benefit of the doubt too much, including students. But this isn't about me. Or it's all about me. I don't know. If they steered other people toward you for gigs, that's a pretty good indicator. Yeah, I mean, they've always been positive. Yeah, if they steered people towards you for gigs. I think that that situation, there's a social dynamic at play that you can't always skirt around, and that people that are naturally more quiet aren't going to develop a relationship without the teacher being more proactive and trying to draw some kind of connection with them out of it. I was more of a quiet student. I just kind of did what people told me to do and kept to myself and things like that. And I might have had a better relationship with some of my teachers if I had been a little more outspoken. I don't know. But you got to just be yourself, Can't change how you are just because you think that the teacher is favoritizing someone else. But there's definitely been experiences that I've experienced as a student where it felt that way, like they were selecting somebody else other than me because of something like that. I don't know. I don't really have an answer for you, Taylor, but I guess I did experience things like that, but I don't know. I think that's just music in general. Like, people hire their friends, their bands are made up of people that they're friends with, like, that's just how it is. Like, you want to make music with people you trust, and that's often people that you also trust personally. And, You want people that are going to show up. You want people that are going to respect your music. You want people that are going to listen to your direction as a band leader. Are going to show up and all that stuff. So it becomes sometimes a closed circle a little bit. But it's up to all of us to kind of, I don't know. It's up to all of us to make it happen. Oh, what's up? Peter's over here now. All right, we're going to wrap this up in just a few minutes here. I see one more question. So if you have other questions, feel free to drop them in. I'll try to grab them before I jump off for today. If you were commissioned to arrange one of your pieces for string orchestra and big band, think Mancini format, which tune would you choose? And how would I go about orchestrating it? I would say that orchestration is one of my weaknesses, so I would need to do some serious work, and I would get some help trying to figure out exactly what the orchestration should be. I'm looking over here because there's that Mancini book, Sounds and Scores. I like that one. That's got a lot of orchestration advice. But oh, hey, Kevin. Thanks for chiming in. Yeah, trust is so important musically for putting together great music. Trust in each other, Which piece of mine would I arrange for string orchestra and big band? It's a good question. What piece of mine would I arrange for string orchestra and big band? Yeah, the Mancini thing. I don't know, because I don't know if that's how I would write it. When I think about it, now that I'm thinking about it, like what would this sound like and what would it feel like? I'd want it to be more like a Gil Evans sort of big band with woodwinds and tuba, maybe French horns, and string orchestra, which I guess is what you're talking about, studio orchestra. There's a great Curtis Fuller record called Cabin from the Sky with Manny Album did the arrangements. I've been looking for them. If anybody knows where they are, get in touch with me. But we've checked everywhere we can think of. But that's kind of that classic studio orchestra kind of thing. And there's also a great one with Nat and Cannonball Adderley called Great Love Songs. That's string orchestra and studio orchestra plus jazz quintet. Excuse me. So that's interesting to me. I'm still not answering your question, but I don't know what I would adapt for string orchestra. Because like with the strings, it like makes such like nice pads, but like doing anything fast is hard. It would depend if there was drums. I know, I'm not really answering your question. So I don't know, Taylor, honestly. Probably something that was pretty, because I like things that are pretty. So whatever tune of mine that you think is pretty, maybe While You're Gone, that would be an obvious one to make into a ballad kind of thing. But or Venus from Guest of Characters, that would be another one. Or Single Petal of a Rose. There you go. Single Petal of a Rose. That would be a good one. I would like that. But those aren't my pieces. Those are arrangements. That one, at least, is an arrangement. But yeah. Anyway, what's up? If you're just joining us, I apologize. I'm going to sign off here in a second. But we're here every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and talking trombone, talking jazz, etc., etc. And I'm going to sign off for today. Take a couple minute break before got some students coming this afternoon, and like I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, we are doing a little live stream concert tonight with the Institute for Creative Music. So if you're interested in hearing some jazz covers of some St. Vincent tunes, that's what we're going to explore later on. But I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week. And we'll be back again next week. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you all soon.